The
We
battlefield smelled like
survived.
endings,
Not all of us.
iron, smoke,
We
the
survived.
particular
Not all
stench
of
of
us.
bodies that would never go home. Thara Blackwood had been to 17 battles in her 28 years, and they all ended the same way. With silence that felt heavier than all the screaming that came before it. She sat propped against what used to be a supply wagon, now just splinters and ash. Around her, the ruins of Redstone Valley stretched in every direction like a graveyard that forgot to bury its dead. Human bodies, orc bodies. So many bodies that after a while green skin and pale skin didn't seem all that different anymore. Just meat that used to be people. Thara's left leg wasn't working right. Hadn't been working right since the warhammer caught her knee 3 hours ago. Or was it 4 time did funny things when you were bleeding? The wound in her side kept leaking despite the field bandage she'd tied with strips from a dead soldier's cloak. Didn't matter whose cloak, dead was dead. Her fingers found the bone flute at her belt, tracing the familiar grooves without thinking. Kale had carved those patterns when he was 12, all proud of the spirals that meant strength through family in the old orc tongue. He'd been 14 when a human arrow found his throat. 3 years ago, numbers were getting slippery in her head. The sun was doing that thing where it turned everything gold right before it gave up for the day. Thara had always liked sunsets. Seemed fitting she'd get to see one more. That's when she heard the footsteps. Not the heavy march of a formation, just one person picking their way through the debris, trying to be quiet and failing, because armor doesn't do quiet no matter how carefully you step. Thara's hand went to her axe before her brain caught up and reminded her that her hand wasn't strong enough to lift it anymore. The weapon lay 3 feet away, blade down in the mud like a grave marker. Might as well have been 3 miles. The footsteps stopped. Thara looked up and saw him standing there. Human. Young. Couldn't be more than 25, probably less. Still had that look in his eyes like the world might start making sense if he just tried hard enough to understand it. War hadn't beaten that out of him yet. He was tall for a human nearly her height, with dark hair matted with sweat and grime. His armor was standard infantry issue marked with the silver hawk of the Northern Territories. The sword in his hand shook just slightly, just enough that Thara knew he'd never had to decide whether to kill someone who wasn't fighting back. She'd seen this moment before, on the other side usually. When you found an enemy wounded and alone, there were 2 choices, quick mercy or slow death. Nobody ever chose the slow one unless they were the kind of monster that made other monsters uncomfortable. This boy didn't look like a monster, but then monsters rarely did until it was too late. Please, Thara said, and hated how her voice cracked on the word. Warriors of the Iron Peak clan didn't beg, but there was begging and there was being practical. Make it fast. The sword stopped shaking. The boy's eyes went wide. The kind of wide that happens when you realize the enemy you've been trained to hate your whole life just used the word please like a person. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The sunset kept doing its golden thing. Somewhere in the distance, a crow called out, probably excited about the feast waiting for it. And this human boy just stood there, sword raised, frozen like someone had turned him to stone mid-swing. Then he did something Thara didn't expect. He lowered the sword. He started, then stopped. Tried again. You're hurt. Thara would have laughed if laughing didn't feel like it would tear her in half. You're observant. That's good. Means you might live long enough to regret what comes next. What comes next? You kill me, Thara said like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Quick, through the heart or throat. I appreciate heart more. Throat takes longer. Tastes like copper. Not a good last taste. The boy's face did something complicated. Horror mixed with confusion, mixed with the kind of distress that came from discovering that the enemy bleeds the same red and thinks about what their last taste will be. I can't, he said. You can, Thara corrected. It's easy. Pointy end goes in life, comes out. You've done it before. In battle. That's different. Is it? Thara tilted her head, studying him. You've killed orcs before. I can see it in the way you hold that sword. So what's different about me? You're not fighting. Would it help if I insulted your mother, called you a coward, threatened to feast on your liver? Thara tried to put some energy into the words, make them sound like the kind of thing a proper orc should say, but it came out tired. Everything came out tired now. Pick one. I'll try to make it convincing. The boy did something even stranger then. He sheathed his sword. Thara blinked. That's not how you kill someone. I'm not going to kill you. Then what are you going to do? We've been over the options. There's death and there's slower death. Those are the choices. No. The boy's voice got firmer, like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. There's a third option. I've been a warrior for 12 years, Thara said slowly. I've never seen a third option. The boy stepped closer. Thara's hand twitched toward her axe again. Old instincts dying hard, but he kept his hands away from his weapon. Just move slow like you'd approach a wounded animal, which Thara supposed she basically was. He knelt down beside her, close enough that she could smell the leather of his armor and the particular scent of human sweat, which wasn't so different from orc sweat when you thought about it. Close enough that if she had any strength left, she could have grabbed him by the throat. She didn't have any strength left. I'm Elias, he said, which was possibly the most absurd thing to say to someone who might be dying. Then again, maybe it wasn't. Maybe knowing someone's name before you died was better than dying alone among strangers. Thara, she heard herself say. Thara. Elias repeated her name carefully, getting the emphasis right on the first syllable like he actually cared about pronouncing it correctly. Your leg is bad, and that wound in your side. He leaned closer, squinting at the blood-soaked bandage. That's from a blade. Recent. If it doesn't get cleaned and stitched. I die, Thara finished. We covered that already. I asked for fast. You're making it slow. What if there was a way where you didn't die at all? Thara studied his face, looking for the trap, looking for the cruelty that had to be hiding somewhere behind those serious brown eyes. She'd seen humans show mercy before, usually right before they did something worse than killing. But this boy just looked earnest, genuinely, stupidly earnest in a way that was going to get him killed someday. Maybe today. Why? Thara asked. Why what? Why would you save your enemy? Elias was quiet for a moment. His hand moved to a small leather pouch at his belt, fingers drumming against it like he did when he was thinking. My brother died 2 years ago at the Battle of Stone Valley, he said. An orc killed him. Thara felt something cold settle in her stomach. Here it came. The revenge. The hate. The reason this was all an elaborate way to make dying hurt more. I hated orcs after that, Elias continued. His voice stayed steady, factual. Hated everything about them. Volunteered for every patrol, every raid. Wanted to kill as many as I could. Thought it would make the hate smaller. Did it? No. Elias looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that Thara recognized because she'd seen it in her own reflection after Kale died. It just made more hate, more dead, more people like you and me sitting in ruins wishing we'd died in battle instead of after. Thara's fingers found the bone flute again. Kale. Sweet, stupid Kale who carved spirals and played songs that made warriors cry. My brother made this, she said, and wasn't sure why she was saying it. Maybe because they were both talking about dead brothers, and that made them something other than enemies for a minute. He wasn't a warrior, shouldn't have been at the battle where he died, but everyone fights eventually in a war that never ends. Elias's eyes fixed on the flute. He was an artist. He was 14. The words hung there between them, heavy as the corpses surrounding them. 14. Not a warrior, not a monster. Just a boy who carved pretty spirals and died before he got to finish growing up. I can't give you your brother back, Elias said quietly, and you can't give me mine. But maybe, he stopped searching for words, maybe we don't have to keep making more dead brothers. Pretty philosophy, Thara said, but some of the bite had gone out of her voice. Doesn't change the situation. You're human, I'm orc. War is war. Then we change the situation. Elias stood up, moving with sudden decision. Can you walk? Not well. Can you walk at all? Thara tested her good leg, pushing against the wagon wreckage. Her left leg screamed, her side burned, but she managed to get upright, leaning heavily against the splintered wood. Define walk. Movement from point A to point B. Then maybe, slowly, if point B isn't very far. There's an old monastery about a mile west, abandoned during the early campaigns. Father Benedict might still be there. He stayed behind to tend the wounded who couldn't be moved. A human monk, Thara said flatly, is going to heal an orc. Father Benedict heals anyone with blood and breath. He said it's kind of his thing, annoyingly principled about it. Your people will hunt me, not if they don't know you're there. Your people will execute you for helping an enemy, not if they don't catch me. Thara looked at him, really looked at him. This boy who should have killed her, who had every reason to walk away, who was instead offering to risk everything for someone he had been taught his whole life to hate. You're either incredibly brave, Thara said slowly, or incredibly stupid. Can it be both? Despite everything, the pain, the blood loss, the sheer absurdity of the situation, Thara felt her mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. The kind of almost smile that happened when you met someone who was definitely going to be interesting right up until they got you both killed. Help me get my axe, she said. Elias retrieved the weapon, grunting with effort. The axe was made for someone with orc strength, heavy enough to cleave through armor. He managed to lift it barely and brought it to her. Thara took it with her right hand, the one that still worked, and used it as a walking stick. Not exactly the dignified use her weapons master would have approved of, but dignity had stopped mattering somewhere around the "please make it fast" part. We walk slow, Elias said, positioning himself on her left side where the injury was worst. If you fall, I'm not strong enough to carry you. So don't fall. Inspiring. I'm working with what I have. They started moving. Thara's left leg dragged, sending fresh waves of pain with each step. The wound in her side pulled and wept, warm blood running down her hip. But she'd been hurt before. She knew how to split her brain into two parts, the part that felt pain and the part that kept moving despite it. The sun finished dying while they walked, painting the battlefield in shades of purple and gray. The ruins of Redstone Valley looked even more haunting in twilight shadows, turning corpses into abstract shapes that didn't look quite human or orc, just remnants of violence. Why did you come to the battlefield? Thara asked after they'd gone maybe 100 yards. Talking helped, kept her brain focused on something other than the 1,000 different ways her body hurt. Looking for survivors from my unit, Elias said. Found 3, helped them back to camp. Came back for one more sweep. Lucky me. Is it luck, finding someone who decides not to kill you? Don't know yet. Ask me again if I survive. They walked in silence for a while. The monastery came into view slowly. A squat stone building that looked like it had been built to last through apocalypses, which was good because it had seen several. Most of the windows were dark, but there was a flicker of candlelight in one of the lower rooms. Thara's vision was starting to blur at the edges. The specific kind of blur that said blood loss was catching up with intention. Her steps got heavier, slower. Stay with me, Elias said, gripping her arm tighter. We're almost there. Heavy, Thara mumbled. Too heavy for a human. You're not that heavy. I've carried supply packs that weighed more. Liar. Okay, yes, massive lie. You're extremely heavy, like carrying a very muscular boulder. But we're managing. Thara's mouth twitched again. That almost smile that was becoming a habit. You talk when you're nervous. Is it that obvious? Very. Humans do that. Talk to fill silence. What do orcs do? Grunt and hope the problem goes away. Does it work? Sometimes. Thara's leg gave out. She caught herself on Elias's shoulder, pulling him down with her weight. They both staggered, nearly fell, managed not to by some miracle of physics in desperation. Not this time, Elias said, and his voice had gone tight with strain. Just a little further. Come on, Thara, you've survived this long. Don't quit on me now. Not quitting, resting. Rest when we get inside. Resting now. Thara. My brother's flute, Thara said, and her voice sounded far away even to herself. It's falling from my belt. Elias looked down. The bone flute had indeed worked loose, hanging by a leather cord that was about to snap. He caught it before it fell, tucking it carefully into his own belt for safekeeping. I've got it, he said, but you need to keep moving. Please. There was that word again. Please. The word warriors weren't supposed to say, the word that made enemies into people asking for help. Thara took a breath, then another. Then she pushed off the ground with her axe and took another step. They made it to the monastery door before she collapsed. Elias caught her barely and started shouting for Father Benedict with the kind of urgency that said he'd run out of calm and move straight into panic. Thara heard footsteps inside, saw a door open, spilling warm light. Then everything went soft and dark, and she let it take her. The last thing she felt was Elias's hand on her shoulder, tight like an anchor. The last thing she heard was his voice saying, "I've got you. Don't go anywhere." Like she had a choice. When Thara woke up, she was warm. That was the first strange thing. Battlefields weren't warm. Death wasn't warm. So either she'd survived or the afterlife had better heating than expected. She opened her eyes, slowly cataloging sensations the way she'd been taught. Pain present but distant, wrapped in something fuzzy that might be medicine, or might be her brain trying to be merciful. Breathing easier than it should be with a hole in her side. Smell herbs, soap, old stone, and the particular scent of boiled bandages that every healer's room shared across every culture. The ceiling above her was stone marked with water stains and age. A single candle burned on a table nearby, throwing dancing shadows. And sitting in a chair against the wall, head tilted back in sleep, was the human boy who hadn't killed her. Elias. Thara tried to sit up. Her body offered several detailed complaints about this decision, but nothing screamed imminent death, which was an improvement over the last time she'd been conscious. The movement woke Elias. He jerked forward, nearly falling out of the chair, then blinked at her with the blurry confusion of someone who'd been asleep but was pretending he hadn't been. "You're awake," he said. "I'm awake," Thara confirmed. Her voice came out rough, like she'd been screaming. Maybe she had been during whatever healing had happened. "How long?" "2 days." Thara absorbed this. 2 days meant the battle was long over. 2 days meant armies had moved. 2 days meant she should probably be dead. "Why are you still here?" she asked. Elias stood up, moving to a water pitcher on the table. He poured a cup and brought it to her, offering it with the kind of careful movement that said he wasn't sure if she'd take it or throw it at him. Thara took it, drank. The water tasted like hope in limestone. "Where else would I be?" Elias said. "With your unit, your army, literally anywhere that isn't a rebel monastery hiding an enemy soldier." Father Benedict prefers sanctuary for the forgotten. Actually, he thinks rebel monastery sounds too exciting. "You didn't answer my question." Elias was quiet for a moment. Then he sat back down, and there was something different in his face. Something that looked like he'd been thinking for 2 days straight and had come to some conclusions. "I told Commander Warren I was scouting the western woods for orc stragglers," he said. "Bought us time, but they'll send a patrol eventually." "Us," Thora repeated. "There's no us. You should leave before they come. And go we're back to killing orcs until one of them kills me. Back to hating so hard it burns a hole where my heart used to be." Elias leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've been sitting here for 2 days watching you breathe. Watching Father Benedict clean your wounds and stitch your side and set your leg. Watching someone who was supposed to be my enemy just be a person. A person who hurt. A person who bled. A person who has a brother's flute tucked in her belt because she can't let go of him." Thara's hand went instinctively to her belt. Found nothing. Panic flared. "It's safe," Elias said, quickly reaching into his own belt. He pulled out the bone flute, offering it to her with careful reverence. "I kept it with me. Figured it was important." Thara took the flute, running her fingers over Kale's carvings. The spirals that meant family. The strength that came from not being alone. "You could have left," she said quietly. "Could have walked away. Told yourself you did your good deed. No one would have blamed you." "I would have." Thara looked at him. Really looked at him. At the exhaustion in his eyes. At the 3-day stubble on his jaw. At the way his hands kept moving to his sword, then away, like he couldn't decide if he was supposed to be a soldier or something else. "Your brother," she said. "At Stone Valley. What was his name?" "Owen." Elias's voice went softer. "He was 19. Wanted to be a blacksmith. Signed up for the army because the wages were better. Lasted 6 months. Kyle was a musician," Thara said, surprising herself by sharing. "Terrible at fighting. Amazing at songs. He joined the Iron Peak Raiders because our father said every orc fights for the clan eventually. He lasted 2 battles. They sat in the silence of shared grief. 2 people who'd lost brothers to a war that had taken so many brothers, it had stopped counting them as people and started counting them as numbers in casualty reports. "I don't want more dead brothers," Elias said finally. "Not human ones, not orc ones. I'm tired of counting bodies and calling it victory. Doesn't change that we're on opposite sides of a war." Maybe we don't have to be. That's not how war works. Then maybe war is wrong. Thera laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that hurt her side. You think you can just decide war is wrong and walk away. Your commanders will execute you for desertion. My clan will kill me for consorting with humans. There's no world where this ends well. Not with that attitude. Not with any attitude. It's called reality. Reality is just what we agree to call things. Elias stood up, started pacing. It was a small room, so his pacing just looked like nervous shuffling. We called each other enemies, monsters, less than human or less than orc. We agreed to that reality and it made killing easier. But what if we agreed to something different? You're talking about one human and one orc, Thara said. Not armies, not kingdoms, not clans, just us. Starts somewhere, doesn't it? Elias stopped pacing, looked at her. Every piece started with one person deciding not to kill one another person. You're naive. Probably, but I'm also alive, and so are you. And 2 days ago, we both should have been dead. So maybe naive isn't the worst thing to be. Before Thara could respond, a door creaked open. An older human entered. 50-something with gray hair pulled back in a simple tie and robes that had seen better decades. His eyes were sharp and kind in equal measure. The kind of eyes that missed nothing and judged less. Father Benedict, Elias said. She's awake. I have ears, boy. I heard you philosophizing from the kitchen. Father Benedict moved to Thara's bedside with practiced efficiency, checking her bandages and feeling her forehead for fever. Your wounds are healing well, child. The leg will need time, but you'll walk again. The side was deeper than I'd like, but clean. No infection. Thank you, Thara said and meant it. Father Benedict pulled out a small leather pouch from his robes, opening it to reveal dozens of smooth stones, each one different. He selected one, a piece of gray river rock, and placed it carefully back in the pouch. 47 souls, he said almost to himself. 48 now counting you. He collects stones, Elias explained, one for every person he saves. Helps me remember they were real, Father Benedict said. Not numbers, not abstractions, real people who hurt and bled and deserved to go home. He looked at Thara. Even the green ones. Thara felt something in her chest do a complicated twist. This human monk who'd saved her life. Who added a stone to his collection like she mattered, like she was worth counting. How long until patrols find us? She asked. 3 days, maybe 4, Father Benedict said. Commander Warren is thorough but cautious. He'll send scouts first. That gives us time. Time for what? For you to heal enough to travel, and for this boy to decide what kind of man he's going to be. Father Benedict looked at Elias with the expression of someone who'd seen many young soldiers make many different choices. Easier to kill than to save. Safer, too. No one executes you for following orders. But easier doesn't mean right. I'm not going back, Elias said. I can't, not after... He gestured vaguely at Thara. Not after seeing that we're the same. We hurt the same, bleed the same, mourn the same. Then you'll need to leave before the patrols arrive, Father Benedict said. Both of you, there are places in the borderlands where neither side's law reaches very far. Settlements of deserters, refugees, people who got tired of choosing sides. It's not easy living, but it's living. I don't know the borderlands, Thara said. I do. Elias's voice got firmer. Passed through them during training. There's a town called Sanctuary Ridge, appropriately named, former soldiers from both sides. They have rules, no fighting, no past, just present and future. Sounds too good to be true. Probably is, but it's better than here. Thara tested her leg again, flexing her foot. Pain, but manageable. The kind of pain that whispered possibilities instead of screaming limitations. She could walk, maybe even run if she had to, but running meant leaving everything. Her clan, her honor, the only identity she'd ever known. She looked at Elias, at this human who should have killed her but chose a harder path, at Father Benedict, who kept stones to remember the saved, at the bone flute in her hands that still smelled like Kael's carving oil. Some choices didn't feel like choices. They felt like falling, like stepping off a cliff and hoping there was ground below instead of just more falling. 2 days ago, I asked you to make it fast, Thara said slowly. You chose different. Now I'm choosing different too. Elias's face did something complicated. Relief mixed with fear, mixed with the kind of hope that hurt because you wanted it so badly but knew it could break you if it didn't work out. "We leave at dawn," he said, "before the patrols arrive. Father Benedict will give us supplies and a map, and then we figure it out as we go. Together. Together." The word felt foreign. Orcs didn't do together with humans. Humans didn't do together with orcs. But maybe that's what made it worth trying, because it was impossible and terrifying and probably doomed to fail spectacularly. But it was also alive, and alive beat dead every single time. Thara held out her hand. Her right hand, the one that still worked properly. Elias looked at it for a moment, understanding the weight of the gesture. In orc culture, you didn't touch someone unless you trusted them not to use that touch to hurt you. He took her hand. His grip was firm, but not crushing. Human, but not weak. "Deal," Thara said. "Deal," Elias echoed. And in that moment, with their hands clasped and Father Benedict watching with the satisfied expression of someone who just added another stone to his collection of impossibilities, something shifted. Small, fragile, but real. The war didn't stop. The hatred didn't disappear. The world didn't suddenly become kind and understanding. But two people who should have been enemies chose different. And sometimes that's how peace starts. Dawn came too early and too gray. The kind of morning that looked like it couldn't decide between fog and rain and chose both. Thara stood at the monastery door, testing her weight on her bad leg. Better. Not good, but better. Father Benedict's healing had been thorough. The wound in her side was closed and bound. The knee stable, even if it complained about rapid movement. Elias was checking supplies one last time. Bread, dried meat, water skins, bandages, and a map sketched on what looked like the back of a prayer scroll. Father Benedict wasn't big on wasting materials. "The path west follows the old trade road for 3 miles, Father Benedict said, tracing the route with a finger that trembled slightly with age. "Then you'll need to cut north through the Whispering Pines. Stay off the main roads. Both armies patrol them heavily. There's a river ford at the old mill. Cross there, and you'll be in the borderlands by nightfall tomorrow." "Thank you," Elias said, "for everything." "Don't thank me yet. You're walking into a life that has no home and no certainty. Most people who run to the borderlands don't last a year." Father Benedict looked at them both, his sharp eyes measuring. "But you two, you might be stubborn enough to make it work." "Is that a compliment?" Thara asked. "It's an observation. What you make of it is up to you." Father Benedict pulled out his leather pouch of stones, running his fingers over them like prayer beads. 48 souls saved. Every one of them chose to keep living when dying would have been easier. That took a particular kind of strength. He handed Thara a small bundle wrapped in cloth. When she opened it, she found extra bandages, a jar of healing salve, and a water-smooth stone, the color of jade. "For your collection," Father Benedict said, "when you save someone and you will add them to it. Remember that salvation isn't just about big heroic moments. Sometimes it's just choosing not to kill when killing would be easier." Thara closed her fingers around the stone. It was warm from being in the monk's pocket. "I'm not a healer." "No, but you're someone who survived when you shouldn't have. That makes you qualified to help others do the same." Elias shouldered his pack, adjusting the straps. His armor was gone, too recognizable, too loud for traveling light. He wore simple traveler's clothes, now brown and gray, the kind that said nothing about who you were or where your loyalty lay. Thara had kept her orc leathers but removed all the clan markings. Bare leather felt naked. Wrong. But wearing the Iron Peak sigil into the borderlands would be like wearing a target. "Ready?" Elias asked. "No," Thara said honestly, "but that's never stopped me before." They left the monastery as the sun was trying to break through the gray. The trade road was empty, which was both good and concerning. Empty meant no patrols. Empty also meant no witnesses if they ran into trouble. They walked in silence for the first hour. Not uncomfortable silence, just the quiet of two people saving their breath for walking. Thara's leg held up better than expected. The knee was stiff but functional, and the pain had settled into a dull throb that was easy to ignore once you got moving. Around mid-morning, Elias broke the quiet. "Tell me about your clan." "Why, Yamoas? Because if we're doing this running away, starting new, I should probably know more about you than just your name and the fact that you don't die easy." Thara considered this. Sharing clan stories with a human felt like betrayal, but then she'd already committed betrayal the moment she chose to leave. Might as well be thorough about it. Iron Peak Clan, she said. Northern Rockies, Colorado. We're raiders mostly. Fast strikes, take what we need, disappear before the humans can mobilize. We don't have farms like Valley Orcs. Too rocky, so we take from those who have. So bandits. Survivors, Thara corrected. There's a difference. Bandits take for greed. We take because winter in the mountains means you starve or you steal. Fair distinction. Elias stepped over a fallen log, offering a hand to help her across. Thara ignored it. She could manage, but appreciated that he'd offered. What about family? Elias asked. Besides Kyle. Mother died in childbirth with my younger sister. Sister lasted 2 days. Father raised us alone until he took an arrow in the spine during a raid. Been paralyzed below the waist for 6 years now. Lives with my uncle's family. I'm sorry. Don't be, he's alive. That's more than most warriors get. They walked through a stretch of birch trees, silver bark peeling like old scrolls. The forest was waking up. Birds calling, small animals rustling through undergrowth. Normal sounds, the kind that said no one was hunting them yet. My turn, Thara said. Tell me about your family. Not much to tell. Father's a tanner. Mother helps with the business. 3 kids. Had 3 kids. Elias's voice went soft. Owen was the oldest. I'm the middle. Sister Claire is 16. Wants to be a scholar. You joined for revenge. Joined for the pay, Elias said. Easier than admitting I was enlisting because I wanted to kill orcs for revenge. Did you kill many orcs? 6. He said it flat, factual. 7 if you count the one I wounded, who probably didn't make it. Every one of them had faces, expressions. One of them begged, another fought until his last breath. The 6th one just looked tired. War makes us all tired, Thara said. Yeah, it does. They reached the edge of the whispering pines by early afternoon. The trees here were older, darker, tangled with undergrowth that required careful navigation. The path Father Benedict had marked wasn't a real path, more a suggestion of where the forest was slightly less hostile. Stay close, Thara said. These woods have a reputation. For what? For making people disappear. Old magic maybe, or just good hiding spots for things that don't want to be found. Comforting. They pushed deeper into the woods. The canopy overhead blocked most of the light, turning afternoon into perpetual twilight. Sounds changed. Fewer birds. More rustling that could be wind or could be something with teeth watching them pass. Thara's hand stayed near her axe. Elias's hand stayed near his sword. They moved like what they were, 2 soldiers in enemy territory, except the enemy was everywhere and nowhere. An hour into the woods, they heard voices. Both of them froze. Elias held up a hand. Wait. Thara nodded, already scanning for cover. They moved off the non-path behind a massive oak tree with roots that created natural hiding spots. The voices got closer. Human. At least 3, maybe 4. Patrols. Waste of time, one was saying. If there were orc stragglers, they'd be long gone by now. Commander Warren wants every sector cleared, another responded. We clear every sector. Yeah, but... The voice cut off suddenly. You hear that? Thara's heart kicked into high gear. Elias's hand went to his sword hilt, then stopped. Drawing a blade made noise. They needed absolute silence. Footsteps approached their hiding spot. Slow. Searching. Probably just deer, the first voice said, but he didn't sound convinced. Check it anyway. A soldier came around the oak tree, young, maybe 20, green enough that his armor still shined. He saw Elias first, saw the traveler's clothes, the carefully neutral expression. Then he saw Thera. His eyes went wide, his mouth opened to shout. Elias moved fast. His hand came up, covering the soldier's mouth. His other arm wrapped around the boy's chest, pulling him close in a hold that looked like a hug, but was actually complete immobilization. Don't, Elias whispered. Please don't. The soldier struggled. His friends were maybe 20 feet away. One shout would bring them running. One shout would end everything. Thara stepped forward, locking eyes with the young soldier. She kept her axe at her belt, hands visible and empty. We don't want to hurt you, she said quietly. We just want to leave. Let us leave. The soldier's eyes were panicked. He'd probably never seen an orc this close who wasn't trying to kill him. Probably spent months hearing horror stories about green-skinned monsters who ate babies and drank blood. And here was one telling him they didn't want to hurt him. "Your name," Elias said, his voice gentle but firm. "Tell me your name. Nod if you can do that." The soldier nodded shakily. Elias slowly removed his hand from the boy's mouth, ready to cover it again if he tried to shout. "Jacob," the soldier whispered. "Private Jacob Hall." "Jacob, I'm Elias. This is Thara. We're not going to hurt you, but we need you to be quiet." "Can you do that?" Jacob's eyes bounced between them. You're, you're the orc from the monastery. Commander Warren has patrols looking for you." "I know," Thara said. "That's why we're leaving. Going to the borderlands. Never coming back." "He'll have me executed if he finds out I let you go." "He won't find out," Elias said. "You tell him you searched this sector. Found nothing. We were never here." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Elias's voice got harder. "You can choose. Same way I chose when I found her dying on a battlefield. You can kill us, try anyway. Or you can let us go and tell yourself you never saw anything." Jacob's friends called out from deeper in the woods. "Jacob, find anything." Time compressed, the moment stretched thin. Jacob looked at Thara, at Elias, at the path that led deeper into the borderlands and away from a war that had already taken too much from everyone. "Nothing," Jacob shouted back. "Just a deer trail." Thara felt something release in her chest. "Thank you," Elias said. Jacob pulled away, stepping back but not running, not shouting. "You need to go, now. They'll want to sweep this area twice." "We're going," Thara said. "She's really not going to eat me?" Jacob asked, and there was actual curiosity behind the fear. "No," Thara said. "I only eat humans on Tuesdays. Today is Wednesday." Jacob's face did something between terror and realization that she was joking. It landed somewhere near confused respect. "Go," he said again. "Before I remember, I'm supposed to be a loyal soldier." Elias gripped Jacob's shoulder once. Brief, grateful. Then they were moving, fast as Thara's leg would allow. Behind them they heard Jacob rejoining his patrol, heard him telling them the sector was clear. They didn't slow down until they'd put an hour between them and the patrol. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Thara leaned against a tree leg, throbbing. "That was close," she said. "Too close." Elias's hands were shaking slightly. Post-adrenaline. If he'd shouted, but he didn't. Why would he let us go? "Same reason you didn't kill me," Thara said. "Because once you see someone as a person, it's harder to make them into a monster." They reached the river ford just before sunset. The old mill Father Benedict had mentioned was exactly where his map said it would be. A crumbling structure half collapsed into the water wheel still and covered with moss. The river ran shallow here, easy to cross if you didn't mind wet boots. They crossed as the last light died. On the far bank, Thara turned to look back at the whispering pines, back at the world she was leaving, her clan, her father, everything she'd ever known about who she was supposed to be. "Second thoughts?" Elias asked. "Fifth or sixth thoughts," Thara corrected. "But I'm still here." "Me too." They made camp a half-mile from the ford, in a clearing that offered visibility in all directions. No fire too risky. They ate dried meat and hard bread in darkness, listening to the sounds of a forest that belonged to neither human nor orc territory. "Play something," Elias said suddenly. Thara looked at him. "What?" "The flute. Play something." "I haven't played since KL died." "I know, but maybe—" Elias pulled the bone flute from his belt, offering it to her. "Maybe it's time." Thara took the flute. KL's carvings felt familiar under her fingers. She'd watched him make this, sitting by the fire in their father's hall. Watched him test each note, adjusting the holes until the sound was perfect. She brought it to her lips, tried to remember. The first note came out shaky, uncertain. The second better. By the third she remembered the song, an old orc lullaby that mothers sang to children to keep the nightmares away. The melody was simple, haunting. It spoke of mountains and moonlight and being safe even when the world wasn't safe. When she finished, her eyes were wet. "That was beautiful," Elias said quietly. "Kael taught me, before he learned to fight, before the war made him into a soldier instead of a musician. He'd be proud of you, for running away, for choosing to live, for being brave enough to be something other than what they told you to be. Elias shifted closer. There was something in his face that made Thara's breath catch. Something that looked like the moment before falling. Elias, Thara said, yeah, thank you. For what? For not making it fast. Thank you for letting me choose different. They sat in the darkness, shoulders almost touching. Two people who'd walked away from everything. Two people who had nothing except each other and the hope that nothing might be enough. The night settled around them, full of possibility and danger in equal measure. They took turns on watch, sleeping in shifts, trusting each other with their lives in the way only people who'd already saved each other could. And when dawn came, they kept walking, away from war, toward whatever waited in the borderlands. Together, the borderlands earned their name honestly. They weren't just geographical boundaries. They were the space where all boundaries got fuzzy, where law meant whatever the strongest person with the biggest weapons said it meant, where you could be anyone because no one asked who you used to be. Sanctuary Ridge sat in a valley between two ridges, looking like someone had collected every architectural style from every culture and thrown them at a town without a plan. Human stone foundations, orc timber supports, elven glass windows that were somehow intact despite the chaos. Buildings leaned against each other like drunk friends walking home. The sign at the town entrance was written in three languages, Common, Orcish, and what looked like Dwarvish. It said simply, no past, no fighting, no questions. Home sweet home, Elias muttered. They'd spent 2 more days traveling, avoiding patrols, sleeping rough. By the time they reached Sanctuary Ridge, Thara was barely limping. Father Benedict's healing was quality work. The leg had held up. The side wound had stayed closed. She felt almost whole again. Almost. The streets were exactly what you'd expect from a town of refugees and deserters. Humans walking past orcs with careful neutrality. A dwarf arguing prices with an elf at a market stall. Children of mixed heritage playing in the dirt too young to understand why they shouldn't exist. There, Elias pointed to a building that might have been an inn or might have been someone's house that got too big. The sign said, "The Iron Rest" in crooked letters. Inside the common room was crowded with the kind of people who had stories they'd never tell. A human with orc clan tattoos on his neck. An orc woman wearing human peasant clothes. A mixed group playing cards with the aggressive friendship of people who decided their differences didn't matter anymore. The innkeeper was a massive orc male with one tusk missing and scars that suggested he'd earned his retirement from whatever violence he'd left behind. He looked up as they entered, eyes assessing them with the practiced speed of someone who could spot trouble before trouble spotted itself. New arrivals, he said, not a question. Running, Thara said. No point lying in a place built on not asking questions. From the northern campaign, both sides. The innkeeper grunted, a sound of understanding. Name's Boss Garrick. Rooms are 2 copper a night. 5 copper gets you meals. Work if you want to stay longer. Always need hands. Rules are simple. No fighting inside the town. No past names, no recruitment for either side. Break the rules, we break you. Understand? Understood, Elias said. Good. Garrick pushed a key across the bar. You're in room 7, up the stairs, end of the hall. Roof leaks when it rains, but the bed's clean and the door has a lock. The innkeeper paused, studying them with those sharp eyes. Welcome to Sanctuary Ridge, or what passes for sanctuary around here. Room 7 was small. 1 bed, 1 window, 1 chair that looked like it might collapse if you sat on it wrong. But it had 4 walls and a door and a lock, which made it the closest thing to safety either of them had felt in weeks. Thara sat on the bed, carefully testing the frame. It held. Elias took the chair, which creaked but didn't break. So, Thara said, now what? Now we figure out how to live, Elias said. Find work. Build something that isn't about killing. Maybe see if it's possible for 2 people from different worlds to make one new world that works. That sounds exhausting. Probably is. Elias smiled, small, tired but real. But we've done harder things. We survived a war. We walked away from everything. We can probably manage a life. Thara pulled out the bone flute, turning it over in her hands. Kale's carvings caught the late afternoon light coming through the window. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Me too. What if this doesn't work? What if we get caught? What if it does work? Elias interrupted. What if we build something good? What if we prove that choosing different was right? You're doing that optimism thing again. Someone has to. A knock on the door made them both tense. Old instincts, old fears. But this was Sanctuary Ridge. No past, no fighting. Elias opened the door. A young human woman stood there, maybe 19, with a child on her hip. The child had green-tinged skin and small tusks just starting to grow in. Sorry to bother, the woman said. I'm Nina. This is Tommy. We live next door. Heard you were new. Thara said, standing. This is Elias. Elias like the name, or Elias like you used to be someone else? Just Elias. Nina smiled the kind of smile that said she understood. Just Nina then. Welcome. It's not much here, but it's honest. You need anything, knock. Community is what keeps us alive in a place like this. Thank you, Elias said. Nina left. The child Tommy waved with a chubby hand as the door closed. A human and an orc, Thara said, processing what they'd just seen. Had a child together. Seems like it. And they're alive, living here, raising a family. Seems like it, Elias repeated. Thara looked at him, really looked at him, at this human who'd chosen mercy over duty, who'd walked away from everything, who sat here now in a tiny room in a forgotten town, still choosing her. Elias, yeah. Come sit with me. The chair looks like it's going to murder you. Elias moved to the bed, sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, close enough that Thara could feel his warmth, his breath, his absolute solid presence. I'm glad you didn't make it fast, Thara said quietly. I'm glad you let me choose different. Thara turned to face him. His eyes were brown and serious and full of something that looked a lot like hope, mixed with fear, mixed with the kind of determination that had walked them all the way to the borderlands. What are we doing? She asked. I think, Elias said slowly, we're figuring out that enemies is something people made up. That underneath all the green skin and pale skin and propaganda were just people who hurt and hope and want to matter to someone. That's very philosophical. I've had time to think. Thara reached for his hand. Elias's fingers closed around hers, gentle, firm, careful. His thumb traced the scar on her knuckle, the one she'd gotten at 15 during her first real fight. I don't know how to do this, Thara admitted. This, whatever this is. Me neither. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we figure it out together. Together, Thara echoed. That word again. The impossible word that was starting to feel possible. She leaned forward. Elias met her halfway. Their foreheads touched, an orc gesture of trust and intimacy. His breath was warm on her face. Her hand tightened on his. Is this insane? Thara whispered. Completely, Elias whispered back. Good, I hate boring. They sat like that as the light faded outside, turning the sky rose and amber. Two people from different worlds building one new world between them. It was small, it was fragile, but it was theirs. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. Thara found work at the blacksmith's forge. Turned out orc strength was valuable when you needed someone to work the heavy hammer. The blacksmith was a dwarf named Borin, who asked no questions and paid fair wages and occasionally shared tips about metalwork that Thara had never learned in her clan. Elias ended up helping at the Iron Rest. Boss Garrick needed someone who could deal with both human and orc customers, someone who understood both cultures. Elias was qualified by virtue of having been both enemy and friend to each. They fell into routines, working during the day, eating together at night, sharing the small room that slowly started to feel less like a hiding spot and more like home. Thara played the bone flute sometimes late at night when the town was quiet. Songs Kyle had taught her, songs her mother had sung, songs she made up as she went inventing melodies for this new life that had no old music to guide it. Elias listened. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and just breathe. And Thara would watch him and think about how strange it was that a human could feel like home when her actual home was mountains and stone halls and the rough voices of her clan. 6 months after they arrived, Thara came back to the room to find Elias sitting on the bed holding a piece of worn paper. I got a letter, he said. Thara stopped walking. From my sister, Claire. Somehow she tracked me down through a friend of a friend who knew someone in the borderlands. She's smart like that. What did it say? Elias handed her the letter. The paper was worn like he'd been reading it over and over. The writing was careful, feminine. Elias, I don't know if this will reach you. I don't know if you're alive, but I'm going to pretend you are and that you'll read this. Mother and father think you're dead, killed in action. There was a memorial service. The whole village mourned. I know you're not dead. I can feel it. And I know you had reasons for leaving. Good reasons, probably. The kind that makes sense when you're the one living them. I don't care why you left. I just care that you're alive. If you're reading this, I want you to know whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whoever you're with, if you're happy, that's all that matters. Don't come back if it's not safe. Don't write if it puts you in danger. Just live. Please. Live enough for both you and Owen. Love always, Claire. Thara read the letter twice, then handed it back. Are you happy? She asked. Elias looked at her. At this orc woman who'd become his entire world in the span of months. At the life they'd built from nothing. Yeah, he said. I think I am. Then your sister's right. That's all that matters. That night, Thara held Elias while he cried. Not sad tears. The complicated kind that came from grief and relief and the strange joy of being remembered with love instead of anger. And in the morning they kept building. Year 2 brought shadows. It started with rumors. Whispers in the market about a group calling themselves the Purity Brigade. 15 people mixed humans and orcs who believed places like Sanctuary Ridge were abominations. Sins against nature. Stains that needed to be cleaned. They're just talk, Boss Garrick said during a town meeting. Every few years, some group decides we're their problem. They come. They see we're not worth the trouble. They leave. But Thara had been a warrior too long to dismiss threats. And if they don't leave, she asked, then we remind them of the rules. No fighting in town. That goes for attackers too. The Purity Brigade arrived on a cold morning when frost still clung to the rooftops. 15 of them. 7 humans, 8 orcs. All carrying weapons. All wearing the same expression of righteous certainty that made Thara's stomach turn. Their leader was a human male, maybe 40, with the bearing of someone who'd commanded soldiers. He rode at the front, armor-polished, sword sharp. Boss Garrick met them in the town square. Unarmed. Calm. State your business, he said. The leader dismounted, and Thara's breath caught. She knew that face. Older now, harder but unmistakable. Captain Merrick, Elias said quietly beside her, shock in his voice. Sir. Graves. Merrick's eyes were cold. I trained you, fought beside you. Thought you died with honor at Redstone Valley. Instead, I find you here, living with this. He gestured at Thara with disgust. Elias stepped forward. I didn't betray you, sir. I chose something different. You chose a monster over your brothers in arms. Over me. Merrick's voice carried across the square. We're here to cleanse this place. You've built a monument to perversion. Humans and orcs living together. Breeding together. Creating things that shouldn't exist. Tommy Nina's 3-year-old son peeked out from behind his mother's legs. Those small tusks. Those innocent eyes. Thara felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. This is a sanctuary, Garrick said. You're welcome to pass through, not welcome to cause trouble. We're not causing trouble, we're solving it. Merrick's people formed a line in the square, weapons ready. The town gathered, 40, 50 people, humans, orcs, mixed families, all watching, all waiting. Thara's hand went to her axe. Every instinct screamed to fight, to defend, to break these people who threatened everything she'd built. But the rules, no fighting in town. If she broke the rules, she was no better than them. Elias touched her arm, gentle, grounding. Don't, he whispered. Not like this. Merrick pointed at Nina and Tommy. That child is an abomination, a crime against nature. That child, Nina said, her voice shaking but clear, is my son. That thing shouldn't exist. Thara stepped forward, not with her axe, with nothing but her voice and the weight of them 2 years building something worth defending. I've killed humans, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I've killed so many I stopped counting, stopped remembering their faces. That's what war did to me. made me forget they were people. She looked at Merrick, really looked at him. You want to kill us because we're different, because we chose something you don't understand. But I've seen what killing looks like. I've been the one holding the axe, and I can tell you it doesn't fix anything. It just makes more corpses, more orphans, more people like me who can't remember the faces. Merrick's jaw tightened. Pretty words from a monster. Maybe I am a monster, Thara said. I've done monstrous things, but I'm trying to be something else now. We all are. And if you want to stop us, you'll have to kill every single person in this square. She spread her arms, unarmed, vulnerable. So go ahead, start with me, make your point. But know that these people, she gestured to the crowd, they'll stand over my body. They'll make you kill them too. Yes, of them. Every human, every orc, every child who doesn't understand why being different is supposed to be wrong. The silence stretched. Merrick's hand tightened on his sword. Then Boss Garrick stepped forward. Then Nina holding Tommy. Then Elias. Then the dwarf blacksmith. The elf merchant. The human with orc tattoos. The orc woman in peasant clothes. One by one, the town formed a wall, unarmed, united. You want them, Garrick said quietly. You go through all of us. Elias faced his former commander. You taught me that leadership means protecting those who can't protect themselves, sir. You taught me that honor means doing what's right even when it's hard. I learned those lessons. I'm living them now. Merrick looked at his people, at the town, at the math that said even if they won the cost would be more than the victory was worth. This isn't over, he said. It never is, Thara replied. But today it is. The Purity Brigade left, slowly, reluctantly, but they left. When they were gone, Thara's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the dirt, shaking with adrenaline and relief and the terror of how close it had been. Elias sat beside her. Nina brought Tommy over and the little boy hugged Thara's neck with sticky hands. Thank you, Nina whispered. Thara held the child. This impossible child, this proof that different didn't mean wrong. We choose mercy over violence, she said, every single day. That night, Father Benedict's words came back to her. When you save someone, add them to your collection. Thara pulled out the jade stone he'd given her, held it, then placed it on the windowsill. One stone, for a town that chose peace over violence. She'd start her own collection. Year 3 brought joy. Marry me, Elias said. They were sitting by the forge after work, watching dusk paint the ridges in shades of lavender and copper. Thara was cleaning soot from under her fingernails. Elias was mending a torn shirt. Completely ordinary moment. Completely extraordinary question. Thara looked at him. What marry me? Not a human wedding or an orc bonding. Something new, something ours, but marry me. Why, Baham? Because I love you. Because I wake up every morning grateful you didn't die on that battlefield. Because I want everyone to know you chose me, and I chose you, and we're choosing each other for as long as we have. Thara set down the rag she'd been using. Her hands were shaking. That's a lot of choosing. It is. What if I say no? Then I'll ask again tomorrow, and the next day, until you either say yes or get so annoyed you say yes just to shut me up. Thara laughed. The real kind. The kind that made her ribs hurt and her eyes water. Yes, she said. Yes, you stubborn, optimistic, impossible human. Yes, I'll marry you. Elias kissed her, deep and long and full of 2 years of building toward this moment. When they pulled apart, Thara rested her forehead against his. That orc gesture she'd taught him, that intimacy that meant more than words. When she asked, tomorrow. You don't want to wait, plan something. I've been planning this since the day I didn't kill you. Everything after is just details. They married in the town square 3 days later. Not because they needed time to plan, but because it took that long to convince Father Benedict to come out of retirement one more time. The old monk arrived with his collection of stones now numbering 57. He'd been busy in Sanctuary Ridge. Half the town attended. Humans and orcs and dwarves and elves and every combination of mixed heritage that proved love didn't care about species. There was no priest, no formal ceremony, just Boss Garrick saying, you two already chose each other. This is just making it official so we can have a party. Thara wore orc leathers with human embroidery that Nina had stitched. Elias wore human clothes with orc clan patterns that Thara had added to the collar. Neither looked like they belonged to one world or the other. They looked like they belonged to each other. Father Benedict asked them to speak their vows. Thara went first. I promise to keep choosing you, every day, even on the days when it's hard, especially on the days when it's hard. I promise to see you not as human, not as my savior, just as Elias, the person who taught me that mercy is braver than hate. Elias's turn. I promise to keep choosing you, to keep seeing you not as Orc, not as my enemy, just as Thara, the person who taught me that love is stronger than war. I promise to stand beside you on every path because any road is worth walking if we walk it together. No rings, no traditional symbols. Instead, Thara gave Elias a small carving she'd made, a spiral like the ones Kael used to carve. Strength through family. Elias gave Thara a chain for the bone flute, so she could wear Kael's memory close to her heart. They kissed. The crowd cheered. Human cheers mixed with orc war cries, mixed with dwarvish applause, mixed with elven whistles. A symphony of cultures that had learned to make harmony from differences. The party lasted until dawn. Someone brought out instruments. Thara played her bone flute. A human with a fiddle joined in. An orc drummer added rhythm. The music was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. Elias pulled Thara close as they danced, if you could call their swaying dancing. They were both terrible at it. Neither human dances nor orc ceremonial movements fit what they were doing. So they invented something new, moving together in ways that made sense only to them. Happy, Elias asked. Impossibly happy, Thara said, which is the only kind of happy we know how to do. Father Benedict added a 50th stone to his collection that night, for two people who chose love when war would have been easier. Year 4 brought miracle. Thara knew something was wrong when she couldn't keep breakfast down for the 3rd day in a row. You're sick, Elias said, worried. I'm not sick. You're throwing up every morning. That's not sick. That's... Thara stopped, did the math, felt her stomach drop. Oh, I think I'm pregnant. Silence. Long stretching silence while Elias processed what that meant. That's not possible, he said. Human and orc biology doesn't work that way. Everyone says so. Apparently our bodies decided that impossible was just a suggestion. Father Benedict confirmed it 2 days later. He examined Thara with practiced efficiency, then sat back with the expression of someone who just witnessed something he had never expected to see. You're pregnant, he said. About 6 weeks along, if I had to guess. But it's not possible, Elias repeated. Son, I've been healing people for 40 years. I've learned that not possible usually just means no one's tried yet. Benedict pulled out his stone collection, selected a smooth piece of river rock. This will be 51 for the child when she arrives. She, Thara asked. Just a feeling. I've been wrong before. The pregnancy was difficult. Thara had always been strong. Orc constitution, warrior endurance. But carrying a child that shouldn't exist took a toll her body wasn't prepared for. She was sick constantly, exhausted. Her body didn't know how to handle what was growing inside it. Elias stayed with her through all of it, held her hair when she threw up, brought her water when she couldn't keep food down, rubbed her back when the pain got too bad to sleep. Please make it fast. Thara gasped during a particularly bad night. The pain in her abdomen was sharp, constant. I can't do this. Fast isn't always mercy, Elias said, echoing Father Benedict's words from 3 years ago. Sometimes slow means survival. Sometimes the difficult path is the only one that leads to life. He held her hand, tight, an anchor against the pain. You're the strongest person I know, he whispered. You survived a battlefield. You survived war. You'll survive this. What if I don't? Then I'll tell our child about you every single day, about how brave you were, about how you chose mercy when hate was easier, about how you taught me what love looks like. Thara squeezed his hand. Not good enough. I want to tell her myself. Then live. Choose life, like you've been doing since the moment I found you. The labor lasted 18 hours. Father Benedict stayed the entire time monitoring Thara's vitals, helping however he could. Nina was there too, having been through this herself. Elias refused to leave even when Benedict suggested he might want to. I was there when this started, Elias said. I'll be here when it finishes. Near the end, Thara was delirious with pain and exhaustion. I can't, she gasped. Please, make it fast. Make it stop. Just a little more, Benedict said. You're almost there. I can't. You can, Elias said. He was holding her hands so tight his knuckles were white. You're Thara Blackwood. You don't quit. Not on battlefields. Not in life. Not now. One more push. One more scream. And then crying. Small. Furious. Alive. Father Benedict held up the baby and Thara saw her daughter for the first time. Green-tinged skin. Brown eyes Elias's eyes. Small tusks that would grow in properly with time. Dark hair with a slight curl. A face that belonged to both of them and to neither. A face that said new. She's perfect, Elias breathed. She's impossible, Thara corrected. We're good at impossible. They named her Kira, a combination of Kael and Claire, a name that honored the dead and the living, a name that belonged to both their worlds. Kira was proof that impossible was just a word people used before they figured out how to make it work. Father Benedict added stone number 51 to his collection. For the child who survived. For the miracle that shouldn't exist but did anyway. Thara held her daughter and played Kael's lullaby on the bone flute, the same song her mother had sung to her, the same song she'd teach Kira, the same song that had connected 3 generations through music and memory and love. Elias watched them both with tears running down his face. We made her, he said, wonder in his voice. We made something beautiful instead of destroying something. Yeah, Thara said. We did. Year 6 brought summons. Vera arrived on a cold afternoon when Kira was 2 years old. The orc warrior looked older harder, like she'd seen things that aged the soul faster than the body. Thara recognized her immediately. They'd fought together in the Iron Peak clan, Beefwortham, when war was all either of them knew. Vera, Thara said, standing from where she'd been playing with Kira in the dirt. Thara. Vera's eyes took in the scene. The human husband. The half-orc child. The life Thara had built. You look different. I am different. What are you doing here? Deserted 3 months ago, after watching too many young orcs die for territory that means nothing. Heard about Sanctuary Ridge. Thought I'd try. Vera paused, uncomfortable. But I brought news. Your father, Chief Aldrich. He's sick, asking for you. Thara felt the ground shift under her feet. How sick? Dying sick, maybe weeks, maybe days. He wants to see you before. Vera didn't finish. Didn't need to. Elias came out of the forge, saw Vera read Thara's face. What's wrong? My father, he's dying, wants to see me. The impossibility of it hit like a physical blow. Return to Iron Peak Clan and risk execution for desertion. Or stay safe and let her father die alone. Some choices weren't really choices at all. We're going, Thara said. We, Vera asked. Elias and I, together. You'll bring a human to the clan. He's my husband. Where I go, he goes. Vera studied Elias with Warrior's assessment. They'll want to kill him. They can try. That night, Thara and Elias talked until dawn. I can go alone, Elias offered. Take a message. You don't have to risk. No. Thara's voice was firm. I ran from war. I won't run from my father. And I won't send you into danger while I hide. It's not hiding. It's being smart. It's being a coward. I've been a lot of things. I won't be that. Elias pulled her close. Then we go together. Face whatever comes together. You could die. So could you. So could anyone any day. But we'll face it on our terms. Walking the path we choose. They left Kira with Nina and Boss Garrick. The goodbyes were brutal. Mama, Kira asked, not understanding. We're going to see Grandpa, Thara said, holding her daughter tight. We'll be back soon. Promise. Thara looked at Elias, at Vera, at the journey ahead that might end with both of them dead. I promise to try. The journey to the Iron Peak clan took 5 days. 5 days of traveling through territory Thara hadn't seen in 6 years. The mountains looked the same. Snow-capped peaks, rocky terrain, the kind of landscape that made strong people and killed weak ones. Vera led them to the clan's stronghold, a series of caves and fortifications carved into the mountainside. Defensible, remote, home. Guards stopped them at the entrance. Recognized Thara. Weapons came up. Deserter, one spat. Daughter, Thara corrected. Here to see my father. On his request. And the human, my husband. The word caused visible shock. One guard actually stepped back like she'd struck him. You married... I married Elias Graves. You can let us pass, or you can explain to Chief Aldrich why you prevented his daughter from honoring his last request. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. Finally, one nodded. Leave your weapons. Thara handed over her axe, Elias his sword. They walked into the stronghold unarmed, surrounded by warriors who wanted them dead. Trust on a difficult path. Chief Aldrich waited in the central hall, paralyzed from the waist down but still commanding. Still sharp, 6 years hadn't diminished the authority in his eyes. He looked at Thara, then at Elias, then back at Thara. You brought him here, he said. Not a question. You summoned me. He's part of me now. Where I go, he goes. Even to your death. Even there. Aldrich studied Elias with the intensity of someone who'd spent a lifetime assessing threats. You're the human who saved my daughter. I'm the human who chose not to kill her, Elias said. The saving part we did together. And you married her, had a child with her. Yes. Why but so? Because I love her. Because she taught me that enemies is just a word. Because building something with her is better than destroying things without her. The hall was silent, 40 warriors watching, waiting for Aldrich's judgment. The old chief's mouth twitched, almost a smile. I didn't summon you for forgiveness, he said to Thara. I summoned you for wisdom. Thara blinked. What? This war is killing us. Has been for generations. We raid because we're poor. They retaliate because we raid. Round and round until everyone's dead or broken. Aldrich gestured to his useless legs. I can't lead raids anymore. Can barely lead the clan. So I need someone who found a different way. He looked at Thara with something like pride. You found peace, built a life with an enemy, created something new. I need to know how, so I can teach our people before I die. Thara felt tears on her face. You're not asking me to come back. No, I'm asking you to teach us to leave, to find our own sanctuary ridges, to choose mercy when violence is easier. Aldrich reached into his furs, pulled out a ring, silver worn smooth with age. Your mother's, he said. She wore it until the day she died. Now it's yours. Not because I forgive you, there's nothing to forgive, but because you're Blackwood. Always. Distance doesn't change blood. He pressed the ring into Thara's hand. Go home, he said, to your husband, your daughter, your life. But know that your clan sees what you did, sees the courage it took, and we're proud. The words broke something in Thara. All the guilt she'd carried it for 6 years, all the shame of running. It cracked and fell away, leaving just gratitude and grief and love. I'll teach anyone who wants to learn, she said. The path to Sanctuary Ridge is open, always. Aldrich nodded. Good. Now get out of here before someone decides clan honor matters more than my wishes. Thara and Elias left the stronghold with Vera. Behind them, they heard Aldrich addressing the clan, heard him explaining that survival sometimes meant choosing different. That strength wasn't just in fighting, that the hardest battles were the ones you walked away from. Some would listen, some wouldn't. But seeds were planted. On the journey back to Sanctuary Ridge, Thara wore her mother's ring and played Kael's flute and felt lighter than she had in years. Thank you, she said to Elias. For what? For walking into a clan full of orcs who wanted you dead. For standing beside me. For being brave enough to believe in impossible things. We're good at impossible, Elias reminded her. Yeah, we are. They returned to Sanctuary Ridge to find Kira waiting with Nina. The little girl ran to them on unsteady legs, arms outstretched. Mama, Papa. Thara scooped her up, held her tight, breathed in the scent of her impossible daughter. We're home, she whispered. And for the first time in 6 years, Thara believed it. This was home. Not mountains or stone halls, not clan or country. Home was wherever they chose each other. Home was the difficult path walked together. Home was here, Year 15 came with war drums in the distance. Kira was 11 now, tall for her age with her mother's strength and her father's thoughtful eyes. She'd grown up in Sanctuary Ridge, knowing she was different, but never feeling less. The town had raised her as much as Thara and Elias had, a whole community invested in proving that impossible children could thrive. She was playing in the street with Tommy and the other mixed heritage kids when the messenger arrived. Human, military bearing, Silver Hawk insignia of the Northern Territories. Boss Garrick met him in the square. The whole town gathered the way they always did when outsiders brought news. Good or bad, they faced it together. "I'm here for Elias Graves," the messenger said. "And Thara Blackwood?" Thara stepped forward, Elias beside her. Kira watched from behind Nina, suddenly aware that adult matters were unfolding. "We're listening," Thara said. The messenger handed Elias a sealed letter. Heavy paper, official wax seal, the kind of correspondence that changed lives. Elias broke the seal, read quickly. His face went carefully neutral. "What is it?" Thara asked. "General Harrigan, he's requesting our presence. Says the war is escalating. Both sides are mobilizing. He wants us to serve as—" Elias paused, choosing words carefully. "Symbols of unity, bridges between human and orc territories." Before Thara could respond, Vera pushed through the crowd. "There's another messenger. Orc, looking for you." The orc messenger was a young female warrior, maybe 20, wearing the markings of a warband Thara didn't recognize. She held out a carved piece of bone, traditional orc message token. Thara took it, read the carved runes. "War Chief Thornback," she said aloud. "He's calling for orc warriors to gather, wants me to—" She looked up, meeting Elias's eyes. "Lead our people to glory." His words. The town square went silent. Both sides. Both pulling. Both wanting to use what Thara and Elias represented for their own purposes. "What will you do?" Boss Garrick asked. Thara looked at the human messenger. At the orc messenger. At Kira, watching with those two old eyes, learning what it meant when the world demanded you pick a side. "We'll respond," Thara said, "but not the way they expect." She turned to both messengers. "Tell your commanders we decline. We won't be symbols for war. We won't speak for causes we don't believe in. We left those armies for a reason. We're not going back." "General Harrigan anticipated you might refuse," the human messenger said. He pulled out another letter. "He asked that you at least consider the lives you could save, the bridge you could build." "War Chief Thornback says the same," the orc messenger added. "That your refusal is cowardice. That you dishonor your clan by hiding." Elias's hand found Thara's, steady, grounding. "Tell them," Elias said, "that we already built our bridge, right here. And if they want to see how peace works, they're welcome to visit. But we won't be used to make war sound noble." The messengers left, unhappy, unsuccessful. The town dispersed slowly, talking in worried clusters. War was coming closer. The borderlands had always been neutral, but neutrality only worked when both sides respected it. That night, Thara couldn't sleep. She stood at the window, watching Sanctuary Ridge under starlight. 11 years they'd been here. 11 years building something that shouldn't work, but did. "You're thinking too loud," Elias said from the bed. "Can't help it." He got up, came to stand beside her, and talked to me. "What if we're wrong? What if, by refusing to help, we make things worse? What if we could actually save lives by becoming propaganda for armies we don't believe in?" Elias shook his head. "We'd save some lives and lose ourselves in the process. Lose everything we built. People are going to die. People are always dying in war. That's what war does. But we can't stop it by participating in it. We already tried that, remember?" Thara leaned against him. "I killed so many people, Elias. Before you. I keep thinking about their faces, the ones I can still remember. What if I could have stopped some of that? What if you're doing more to stop it now than you ever did with an axe in your hand?" Elias turned her to face him. "You want to know what stops war? Not symbols, not speeches, not bridges built on corpses. This." He gestured to the window, to the town sleeping peacefully below. "People living together, raising children together, proving every single day that the hate is a lie." "That sounds naive." "You married me. Naive is kind of my thing." Despite everything, Thara smiled. But the unease didn't leave. 3 weeks later, Sanctuary Ridge held a town meeting. The war was getting closer. Both armies had moved troops to within 50 miles. Supply lines ran through borderland territory now. Patrols were increasing. The neutrality that had protected them was eroding. "We need to arm ourselves," one human settler argued. "Not for aggression, for defense." "If we arm ourselves, we're choosing a side," an orc merchant countered. "The whole point of this place is that we don't choose." "The whole point of this place is survival," the human shot back. "Hard to survive when armies roll through and burn everything." The argument escalated, voices rising, old tensions surfacing, human versus orc. The fault lines that Sanctuary Ridge had worked so hard to erase were showing again under pressure. Thara stood. The room quieted. "I've fought in 17 battles," she said. "Killed more people than I can count. Wore the blood and called it honor. You know what I learned?" She looked around the room. Met eyes, human and orc. "That fighting doesn't end fighting. It just makes more fighting. More blood, more orphans, more people like me who can't remember the faces." "So what do we do?" someone asked. "Just wait for armies to destroy us." "No, we do what we've been doing. We live, we work. We raise our children. We prove that their war doesn't have to be our war." Thara's voice got harder. "We didn't survive this long by becoming what we escaped. We survived by being different, by choosing what's right over what's easy." "What's right might get us killed," the merchant said. "The easy path will definitely kill who we are," Elias added, standing beside Thara. "I've been a soldier. I know what happens when you compromise your values for safety. You lose both." The debate continued for hours. Heated, painful. Finally, Boss Garrett called for a vote. All in favor of arming the town for defense. 43 hands went up. All in favor of maintaining our no-fighting principle. 45 hands. 2 votes. That's all that stood between peace and war. Garrick nodded. "The principle stands. We keep our rules. No fighting, no matter what comes." Some people left angry, some left scared. But the vote held. That night, Thara added another stone to her collection. For a town that chose principle over survival. Again. She had 8 stones now. Small, smooth, each one representing a choice to save rather than destroy. Year 18 brought the ghost Thara had been dreading. Kira was 14, helping at the forge, learning metalwork from Boren, growing into someone strong and kind and impossibly hopeful. She'd brought home a boy last month, Jasper, 16, human, nervous, but genuine. Thara had approved. Not because he was human or because he was polite, but because he looked at Kira like she was the sun and everything else was just orbit. It was a quiet afternoon when the young soldier arrived. 22 maybe. Corporal stripes. Face that looked like it had aged a decade in the last year. He walked into Sanctuary Ridge like a man going to his own execution. He found Thara at the forge. "Thara Blackwood?" he asked. Thara set down her hammer. "Depends on who's asking." "Corporal Finn Ashford, Northern Territories Infantry." He paused. "You killed my father. 12 years ago. Battle of Clearwater Pass." The words hung in the air like smoke. Thara went very still, searching her memory. Clearwater Pass. 12 years ago. She'd killed 3 humans that day. Maybe 4. The details were fuzzy. War made everything fuzzy. "I don't remember his face," she said honestly. "I'm sorry I killed too many to remember them all." Finn's jaw clenched. His name was Marcus Ashford. He was 34, a farmer who signed up because the army paid better than crops. He had a wife, 2 sons. He wrote letters home every week about how much he missed us. "I'm sorry," Thara said again. The words felt hollow, inadequate. "I know that doesn't help, doesn't bring him back, but I am sorry." "You don't even remember him." Finn's voice cracked. "He was a person. He had a life, a family. And to you, he's just nothing. Another number." Thara felt the weight of it. All the deaths. All the faces she'd stopped seeing as human because that's what war demanded. "You're right," she said quietly. "War made me stop seeing people as people. Made me count them as enemies, as obstacles, as problems to solve with an axe. That's war's worst crime, not the killing, the forgetting. The way it makes us stop caring who we destroy. Finn pulled out a knife, not threatening, just holding it, like he needed something solid to grip. I came here to kill you, he said. Spent 2 years tracking you down, planning, imagining what I'd say, what I'd do, how I'd make you hurt the way my family hurt. I understand. Do you? Yes, because I felt the same way after my brother died, after humans killed him. I wanted revenge, wanted blood, wanted to make someone pay. Thara met his eyes. So I killed 6 humans at the next battle, then 7 at the one after that. Kept killing until I stopped counting. And you know what? It didn't make the hate smaller, just made more dead. More families like yours, more people like me who can't remember the faces. Finn was shaking now. Sorry doesn't bring him back. No, it doesn't. Nothing brings them back. Not revenge, not justice, not time. They're gone. Thara stepped closer, slowly, non-threatening. But I can promise you something. Your father's death taught me something. Took me years to learn, but I learned it. That killing is easy. Living with what you've done is hard. And choosing to stop is the hardest thing I've ever done. You want credit for stopping? No, I want you to understand that if you kill me, you won't feel better. You'll just become what I was. Someone who's killed. Someone who has to live with that. Someone who'll see my face when you close your eyes and wonder if it was worth it. The knife trembled in Finn's hand. I hate you, he whispered. I know. I want you dead. I know that too. They stood there, killer and victim's son. 2 people connected by violence neither of them asked for. Then footsteps. Kira appeared, having heard raised voices. She saw the knife, saw Finn put herself between him and her mother without hesitation. Stop, she said. Move, kid, Finn said. This doesn't concern you. She's my mother. It concerns me. Finn looked at her, really looked. Saw the green-tinged skin, the brown eyes, the impossible existence. You're half-orc. I'm Kira, and my mom isn't the person who killed your dad anymore. She's the person who stopped killing, who built something instead of destroying, who taught me that the bravest thing you can do is choose what's difficult over what's easy. What's difficult? Finn repeated bitterly. Yeah, the path where you don't become the thing you hate, where you choose to live instead of adding to the body count. Kira's voice was steady, young but certain. I'm here because she chose that path, because my dad chose it, because they decided love was braver than hate. She pulled out a bone flute from her belt. Kale's flute passed down from mother to daughter. This belonged to my uncle. He was 14 when he died in your war. Never got to grow up, never got to make music. Just died because someone decided he was an enemy. She played a few notes, the lullaby Thara had taught her. My mom plays this every night, to remember him, to remember what she lost, to remember why she stopped. The melody filled the forge, haunting, ancient, human and orc both, or maybe neither. Just music, just memory, just grief given voice. Finn's knife clattered to the ground. He sank down, sitting hard on the dirt floor, and sobbed. Great heaving hoes that came from somewhere deeper than anger. Grief, pure and raw, and finally aloud. Thara knelt beside him, didn't touch him, just sat close. I can't undo what I did to your father, she said. I can't give you back those 12 years. Can't fill the hole he left. But I can tell you that he mattered. That you coming here proves he mattered. That your pain is real and valid, and I carry the weight of causing it. How do I stop hurting? Finn asked through tears. You don't, not completely, but you learn to carry it. You find people who help you carry it. You build something that honors what you lost instead of destroying more in its name. Finn looked up at her, red-eyed, broken. I don't forgive you. I don't expect you to. But I won't become you. Won't become someone who kills and forgets and has to live with that. That's enough, Thara said. That's more than enough. Finn left the next morning, not reconciled, not healed, but walking away instead of adding to the violence. Thara pulled out her collection of stones, hesitated, then added the 9th, for Finn Ashford, who chose mercy over revenge, for a cycle broken instead of continued. 2 weeks later, news spread through the borderlands like wildfire. Young soldiers, human and orc, both were refusing to fight. It started small. A few desertions, a few units that suddenly couldn't maintain combat readiness because half their soldiers had walked away. Then it grew. Entire companies refusing orders. Young warriors on both sides laying down weapons and demanding to know why they were fighting. It's spreading from the border territories, Vera reported during a town meeting. She'd maintained contacts with both armies tracking movements. The soldiers are citing you two, your story, saying if enemies can become family, why are they killing each other? We didn't start this, Elias said. No, but you inspired it. Vera looked at them both. Whether you wanted to or not, you became exactly what the generals feared. Not symbols they could control, examples people could follow. Within a month, the desertion rates were catastrophic. Both armies hemorrhaging soldiers faster than they could recruit new ones. Within 2 months, the generals had no choice but to negotiate. The peace conference was held in Sanctuary Ridge. General Harrigan insisted, if soldiers are walking away because of what you built here, then here is where we talk about what comes next. Sanctuary Ridge prepared, cleaned the square, set up tables, made ready to host the people who'd spent decades trying to kill each other. Thara was terrified. What if we make it worse? She asked Elias the night before. Can't make it worse than generations of war. What if they don't listen? Then they don't listen. But we tell the truth anyway. The delegations arrived at dawn. General Harrigan with his human commanders, War Chief Thornback with orc war leaders, neutral arbiters from the borderlands, and dozens of young soldiers, human and orc, who'd walked away from the war and demanded voice in the peace. Boss Garrick opened the conference. Welcome to Sanctuary Ridge, where the only rule is no fighting, where the only law is that everyone gets to live. You're here because your soldiers chose this over war. Listen to why. General Harrigan spoke first. We need assurances, border guarantees, reparations for no. A young human soldier stood, maybe 19. Sir, with respect, we don't need that. We need to know why we're fighting, and none of you can tell us anymore. An orc warrior stood next. My brother died last year. For what territory no one can farm, pride that doesn't feed families, I want to know what I'm supposed to die for. More soldiers stood, human, orc, mixed units, all asking the same question, why Harrigan looked uncomfortable. Thornback looked angry. Neither had good answers. That's when Thara stood. You want to know why you're fighting, she asked. I'll tell you, you're fighting because your fathers fought, because their fathers fought, because someone generations ago decided that orcs were less than human, or humans were less than orc, and everyone since has been too scared or too proud to question it. She stepped into the center of the square. 20 years ago, I was dying on a battlefield. I asked a human soldier to make it fast, to kill me quick because I thought that was the only option. He chose different. She looked at Elias. He chose slow, chose what was difficult, chose to see me as a person instead of a problem. Elias stood joining her. I was taught to hate orcs, he said. My brother died fighting them. I wanted revenge, wanted blood, wanted every orc dead. He paused. Then I met one who said please, who talked about her dead brother, who bled the same red and mourned the same way. And I had to choose, easy or difficult, death or life, hate or love, Thara finished. We chose love, chose to build instead of destroy, chose to see each other as people. And it was the hardest thing we've ever done. Harder than any battle, harder than any march, harder than facing armies or clans or people who wanted us dead. She looked around at the gathered soldiers. You're here because you're brave enough to choose what's difficult, brave enough to question orders, brave enough to say, I won't kill anymore unless you can tell me why. Her voice grew stronger. And I'm telling you, there is no why. There's just momentum, just hate building on hate, just bodies stacking on bodies, just families broken and children orphaned and warriors like me who can't remember the faces of the people we've killed. A young female orc stood. How do we trust this won't happen again? How do we know peace will last? You don't, Thara said honestly. You don't trust systems. You trust people. One choice at a time. One human not killing one orc not raiding one village, one soldier refusing one order. That's how peace works, not grand treaties. And small choices, made over and over, every single day. Elias stepped forward. My brother died for pride. Thara's brother died for territory. Your brothers, your sisters, your friends, they're dying for reasons that made sense once but don't anymore. What if you just stopped? What if you chose what's difficult? The path where you have to live with your enemies instead of killing them. Silence fell over the square. Then something extraordinary happened. A human soldier walked to the center, set down his sword, ceremonially, deliberately. I'm done, he said. I won't pick it up again for this war. An orc warrior followed, laid down her axe beside the sword. I'm done too. One by one soldiers came forward, human and orc, young warriors who'd seen too much death and were choosing to see something else. 50 weapons laid down, then 100, then more. General Harrigan stood face red. This is desertion. This is what you should have done generations ago, an old human soldier interrupted. He had gray in his beard and scars that said he'd earned his opinions. I've fought for 40 years, sir. Lost more friends than I can count. And for what? So the next generation can do the same, so my grandchildren can die for the same reasons my grandfather did. He shook his head. I'm done. We're all done. Find another way or find new soldiers. Thornback stood furious. You dishonor your clans. You spit on warrior tradition. No. An orc female said. She had gray in her hair too, a veteran. We honor our clans by making sure they survive, by making sure our children don't have to be warriors, by choosing a harder tradition than war. The generals looked at each other, at the weapons piled in the square, at the soldiers, their soldiers choosing peace over orders. They had no army left, no war left to fight. Then what? Harrigan asked quietly. If we stop fighting, what happens to the grievances, the stolen territory, the dead who need justice? You talk, Boss Garrick said. You negotiate, you compromise. You do the hard work of peace instead of the easy work of war. And these soldiers, he gestured to the crowd, they hold you accountable. They're the ones who will die if you fail. Give them voice. The conference lasted 3 days. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. There were arguments and accusations and moments when it seemed like everything would collapse back into violence. But it didn't, because the soldiers wouldn't let it. They stood there, human and orc together, and demanded better from their leaders. And slowly, painfully, a framework emerged. Not peace exactly, more like the foundation for peace. Borders negotiated, reparations discussed, councils formed with representation from both sides and the borderlands. Most importantly, a soldiers' council. Young warriors from both armies given permanent voice in future decisions. The generation that would fight being given power to say no. It wouldn't solve everything. Peace never did. But it was a start. When the delegations left, they left without war. Thara stood in the square afterward, looking at the pile of weapons. Symbols of choices made, of cycles broken. Father Benedict would have loved this. She imagined him adding dozens of stones, hundreds maybe, every soldier who laid down arms. She pulled out her own collection. 9 stones, small compared to what Benedict had built, but each one meant something. Kira came to stand beside her, 14 now, old enough to understand what had happened, what it meant. You changed the world, Mom. No, they did. Thara gestured to where the soldiers had been. We just showed them it was possible. Is that enough? I don't know. Ask me in another 10 years. 8 years passed. The war didn't restart. Not everywhere. Not all at once. There were skirmishes, border disputes, moments when it seemed the old hatreds might flare back into full conflict. But the soldiers' councils held. Young warriors on both sides refused to fight without cause, without answers, without something better than because we always have. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better. Sanctuary Ridge grew, doubled in size, inspired 14 other border towns built on the same principles. No past, no fighting, no questions, just people trying to live. Kira married Jasper when she turned 19. A simple ceremony in the town square. The same place her parents had married, the same place a peace conference had changed everything. They had a daughter 3 years later. They named her Ren. Chief Aldrich died in his sleep at 72. Thara received word from Vera, who'd eventually return to Iron Peak Clan to help guide the transition from raiding to trading. The clan had survived, changed, evolved. Some had left for Sanctuary Ridge and other border towns. Some had stayed and built new relationships with human settlements. Not all orcs approved. Not all humans trusted them. But it was working. Father Benedict's stone collection, all 84 pieces, sat on a shelf in the Iron Rest. Boss Garrick had turned it into a kind of shrine, a reminder that every soul mattered, that salvation was worth the effort. Thara's own collection had grown to 23 stones. Every person who chose mercy, every cycle broken, every small piece built. Year 26 came quietly. Thara was 54 now, gray in her dark hair, lines around her eyes from years of smiling. The old wound in her side ached when rain was coming. Her knee, the one shattered at Redstone Valley, still complained on cold mornings. But she was alive. She had lived. Elias was 51, still optimistic, still talking when nervous, still seeing the best in people even when people didn't deserve it. They'd built a good life, a shop that thrived, friends who'd become family, a daughter who'd grown into someone remarkable, a granddaughter who represented the future. One morning, Kira arrived at the shop with Ren. The little girl was 5 now, bright and curious and completely unburdened by the weight of history her grandparents carried. "We're going somewhere today," Kira said. "All of us. I want Ren to see it." "See what?" Thera asked. "Where it started." They traveled to Redstone Valley. 4 generations in a wagon, Thera and Elias, Kira and Jasper, little Ren, chattering about everything and nothing. The valley looked different. 26 years of weather had softened the scars. Grass grew where corpses had rotted. Wildflowers painted the hills where blood had stained the earth. In the center, someone had erected a memorial stone. Simple. Granite. With words carved in 3 languages. Here an enemy became family. Choose mercy. Ren ran ahead, examining the stone with a child's curiosity. "Grandma, is this where you almost died?" "Yes." "And Grandpa saved you?" "Yes." "Why?" Thara knelt beside her granddaughter, looked into those eyes that had never known war, never known hate as default. "Because he saw a person, not a monster. Because he chose slow when I asked for fast. Because he believed impossible things were worth trying. Like you and him. Like me and him." Ren touched the stone, tracing the carved letters with small fingers. "I'm an impossible thing too, right? Mom says I shouldn't exist." "You're proof that impossible just means no one's tried yet." Thara pulled out the bone flute. Kale's flute, worn smooth by 26 years of playing. She handed it to Kira. "Your turn." Kira took the flute. She'd learned the lullaby as a child, had taught it to Ren. 3 generations connected by music and memory and choices made. Kira played. The melody rose over the valley, sweet and haunting, and full of everything that had been lost and everything that had been found. When she finished, she handed the flute to Ren. "Someday this will be yours, and you'll play it for your children. And you'll tell them about choosing what's difficult over what's easy." Ren held the flute carefully. She was still learning. Her fingers found the holes, covered them awkwardly. She blew and a few shaky notes emerged. Off-key, but earnest. 3 generations. 3 attempts at the same song. 3 voices added to the melody. Elias stood beside Thara, arm around her waist. They were older now, bodies that had softened with age and peace, but still here, still choosing each other. "Think they'll remember us?" he asked. "They'll remember we chose what was difficult," Thara said. "They'll remember it was worth it." She looked out over Redstone Valley, at the memorial stone, at the grass growing where hate had flourished, at her daughter and granddaughter, 2 people who shouldn't exist but did anyway. "You know what the hardest part was?" she asked. "What? Believing it was possible, that one choice could matter, that 2 people could change anything. And now I know, not that one choice changes everything, but that one choice leads to another, and another, until enough people are making enough choices that the impossible becomes just difficult, and difficult becomes achievable, and achievable becomes real." She turned to face him, her husband, her impossible love. the human who'd looked at a dying orc and seen a person worth saving. 26 years ago, you didn't make it fast. Best decision I ever made. Mine too. They stood together on the battlefield that had tried to end them, surrounded by family that shouldn't exist, living in a peace that shouldn't have been possible. Ren played another few notes on the flute. Kira helped her find the right fingering. Jasper took pictures to capture the moment. 3 generations at the place where one generation had chosen different. The afternoon sun painted the valley in warm amber light, the same colors Thara had seen 26 years ago when she'd thought she was watching her last sunset. But she'd gotten 26 more years of sunsets, 26 years of watching impossible things become real, 26 years of choosing what's difficult and discovering it led somewhere worth going. The night before they left Sanctuary Ridge for this journey, they'd had dinner at the Iron Rest. The whole town, it seemed, wanted to see them off. Boss Garrick, older now, and training his daughter to take over the inn, raised a mug. To the 2 fools who made this town possible. Nina sat with Tommy, now 26, a blacksmith, with his own shop, married to a human woman, expecting their first child. You gave us hope, she said simply. You showed us it could work. Vera had returned from the territories with news. Iron Peak clan is thriving, trading not raiding. Your father died proud of what you built. The clan's sending young orcs here to learn, to see that there's another way. A letter had arrived that week from Claire Graves. Elias read it aloud to the gathered friends. Brother, I'm a scholar now teaching mixed heritage history at the Northern Academy. I tell your story to every class. The students need to know that peace is possible, that love is braver than hate, that one human and one orc can change the world. Come visit when you can. I want to meet the woman who taught you what courage looks like. With love and pride, Claire. Father Benedict's stone collection sat on the mantle, honored and preserved. 84 souls. Thara had added her own collection beside it. 23 stones and still growing. 2 impossible things, Elias had said, raising his cup. To the people brave enough to try them, Thara had finished. They'd drunk together. Family by choice, by courage, by choosing what's difficult every single day. Now standing in Redstone Valley with her family, Thara felt the weight of those 26 years. Every choice made, every person saved, every small piece built. We should head back, Kira said as the light began to fade, before it gets too dark. 1 more minute, Thara said. She stood at the memorial stone, placed her hand on the carved letters. Choose mercy. We did, she whispered, and it was worth every impossible moment. Elias's hand covered hers on the stone. Every moment, he agreed. They walked back to the wagon together. 3 generations, soon to be 4, with Kira and Jasper's second child due in spring piling in. Ren chattering about the pretty valley and the old stone, and when she'd be big enough to play the flute properly. As they rode away from Redstone Valley, Thara looked back one last time. The memorial stone stood silent in the fading light. A marker of choices made, of cycles broken, of impossible becoming possible because 2 people were brave enough to try. She pulled out her collection of stones. 23 smooth pieces, each one representing a life saved, a choice made a cycle broken. She held them in her palm, felt their weight, their reality. You know what Father Benedict told me, she said to Elias, that salvation isn't about big heroic moments. Sometimes it's just choosing not to kill when killing would be easier. Was he right? He was right. The wagon rolled on towards Sanctuary Ridge, toward home, toward all the small, impossible moments that built lives worth living. Kira played the bone flute softly, the lullaby drifting over the borderlands, a song about being safe even when the world wasn't safe, about mountains and moonlight and choosing mercy. Ren hummed along, learning the tune by heart. 3 generations, 1 song, infinite choices still to be made. And somewhere in the distance, other young soldiers were laying down weapons. Other enemies were seeing each other as people. Other impossible loves were beginning. Because 2 people had chosen different, had chosen slow when fast was easier, had chosen to build when destroying would have been simpler, had chosen mercy, and the choice had led here, to peace, to family, to a granddaughter who existed as proof that impossible just meant no one had tried yet. Thara closed her hand around her collection of stones, felt Elias's warmth beside her. heard her family's voices filling the wagon with life and laughter and hope. "Please make it fast," she'd said 26 years ago. And Elias had chosen slow, had chosen to see her, to save her, to love her, had chosen what was difficult, what seemed impossible, and that choice had led to this moment, this family, this piece of Marshbun. And it was worth it. Every impossible moment was worth it. The wagon rolled on into the twilight, carrying 3 generations toward tomorrow. And behind them, on a battlefield that had birthed peace instead of more war, the memorial stone stood watch in the gathering darkness, waiting for the next person who needed to know that enemies could become family, that impossible could become real, that choosing mercy was always, always worth it, one choice at a time.